Welcome to the deep dive. You ever wonder what makes some companies, really break away from the pack? Not just good, but truly great.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. Bill Meehan brought this up with Jim Collins, the author of Built to Last.
Right, that book focused on companies that were already great.
Exactly. But
Yep.
Meehan was like, what about the rest? The good companies, how do they get great?
And that question basically sparked this huge research project, didn't it? 5 years long.
A massive undertaking. And that's what we're digging into today. How does good become great? And, maybe more importantly, can we actually use those ideas ourselves?
In our own work, our own lives. Yeah, that's the goal.
Definitely. So the research was intense. They looked at companies between 1965 and 1995 that made this significant leap.
And they had strict criteria, right? It wasn't just a good year or two.
No, not at all. These companies had to crush the stock market, like outperform it by at least 3 times over 15 years.
15 years.
And it couldn't just be because their industry was hot. It had to be the company itself making the change.
So we're talking about some well-known names that made this jump.
Yeah, companies like Gillette, Walgreens, Nucor, Wells Fargo, Abbott, they all fit the bill.
Okay. But just looking at winners isn't enough, is it? You need something to compare them to.
Precisely. They had a carefully selected group of comparison companies. Think Rubbermaid, Adressograph, Warner Lambert, A&P.
Companies that were in similar situations but either, didn't make that leap or maybe their success just fizzled out.
Exactly. Some stalled, some declined. So by comparing the two groups, they could start to isolate what really made the difference.
So our mission today really is to pull out those key principles, the actionable stuff.
Yeah, the things you listening right now could potentially apply, whether you're, leading a team, running a project, or even just thinking about personal goals.
Okay, let's get into it. Where do we start? What was one of the big surprises?
Well, one of the things that really jumped out, and they weren't even looking for it specifically at first, was leadership.
Ah, leadership.
Yeah.
Always crucial. But a specific kind of leadership.
Yes. What they ended up calling a level 5 leader.
Level 5. Okay, I've heard this term. It's that weird mix, isn't it? Like really humble personally, but incredibly driven professionally.
That's the paradox, perfectly stated.
Mhm.
Intense professional will combined with deep personal humility. It's not the flashy celebrity CEO type we often see.
Right. Like they mentioned Stanley Galt at Rubbermaid. He got a lot of credit for their success in the late 80s, but
But the research showed his style was very I-focused. Lots of, I did this, I achieved that. And while they were successful for a time, it wasn't sustained greatness after he left. It didn't build that lasting foundation.
so that's like a level 4 leader. Effective maybe, but too ego-driven.
That's how they framed it. Level 4s can be very effective, but their ambition is often more about themselves than the institution.
Which is funny because boards often look for those larger-than-life figures, don't they?
They do. It's ironic. The actual level 5 leaders identified in the study were often, kind of under the radar. Their ambition was channeled into the company, into making it great, not into making themselves famous.
So less about having all the answers.
And more about asking the right questions. Fostering debate. Ken Iverson at Nucor is a great example. They apparently had these really intense, almost argumentative meetings.
Really? Not just top-down directives.
No, it was about hashing things out, confronting facts, letting the best ideas win through dialogue, not just because the boss said so.
Okay, so the actionable insight here for someone listening. It's about cultivating humility, checking the ego.
Yeah, and channeling that ambition toward the goal, the team, the project. Focus on we, not I. Lead with questions. Listen more. It's not about being soft. It's about having that fierce resolve for the cause.
That makes sense. It's a different model of strength. Okay, what's next? What's another core idea?
The next one really flips conventional wisdom on its head. First who, then what?
First who, then what? Okay, explain that. Usually it's figure out the strategy, then find people to execute it.
Right. That's what most of us do. But these good to great companies did it the other way around. They focused relentlessly on getting the right people on the bus and, just as importantly, getting the wrong people off the bus.
Before they even knew exactly where the bus was going?
Before they finalized the strategy, yes.
Yeah.
The idea is, if you start with the right people, you can adapt to whatever challenges come your way. They'll figure out the what together.
And right people wasn't just about skills on a resume.
Less about specific background or technical skills, though, those matter, and more about inherent character traits, like work ethic, values, intelligence, dedication, commitment.
Okay, give me an example.
Look at Walgreens versus Eckerd Drugs. Cork Walgreen was apparently obsessed with getting the right managers in the right seats. He built a strong team.
And Pecker.
Jack Eckerd was brilliant, a genius with 1,000 helpers, as the book puts it. He made great strategic moves. But when he left,
The helpers couldn't sustain it without the genius.
exactly, Walgreens had built a team that could thrive beyond any single individual. The who came first.
So this means being really tough on people decisions.
Rigorous is the word they used. Not ruthless, but rigorous. They were slow to hire, really making sure someone was a fit. But they were quicker to act if they realized they'd made a mistake or someone wasn't right for a role.
Moving them to a different seat or off the bus entirely?
Yes, though, interestingly, they actually used layoffs less often than the comparison companies.
Oh, really?
How so?
Because they were so focused on getting it right up front, they didn't need to resort to mass layoffs as much later on. They built the right team incrementally.
Okay, so the practical advice here. Obsess about the who, prioritize character and fit, be rigorous in your people decisions, even if it feels slower up front.
Exactly. Get the right people, and you dramatically increase your odds of figuring out the right what.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on. What about facing reality? Things don't always go smoothly.
Yes. This leads to the concept of confront the brutal facts, yet never lose faith. The Stockdale paradox, right. Named after Admiral Jim Stockdale.
That's the one. He was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for, what, over 7 years?
Yeah.
Horrific conditions.
Yeah, unimaginable.
And he said the ones who didn't make it were often the optimists.
The optimists. That sounds wrong.
The unrealistic optimists?
Ugh.
The ones who kept saying, we'll be out by Christmas. And then Christmas would come and go. Then Easter. Then Thanksgiving.
And they'd lose hope, get demoralized.
Exactly. Stockdale, on the other hand, said he never lost faith that he would get out and prevail in the end. But crucially, he also confronted the brutal reality of his day-to-day existence.
So faith in the ultimate outcome, but total realism about the present situation, that's a tough balance.
Incredibly tough. And the good to great companies managed this. They built mechanisms to ensure they were always confronting the brutal fact.
How do they do that? What are the practical ways?
4 key things emerged. First, lead with questions, not answers like we talked about with level 5 leaders. Creates an environment where truth can be heard. Second, engage in dialogue and debate, not coercion. Encourage discussion, even disagreement. Think new core again.
Right, the intense arguments.
Third, conduct autopsies without blame. When something goes wrong, analyze it thoroughly to learn, but don't point fingers. Philip Morris did this after their 7-Up acquisition didn't work out as planned.
Learn from failure without creating a culture of fear. Makes sense.
And fourth, build red flag mechanisms. Ways to ensure critical information or uncomfortable truths can't be ignored, that they bubble up to the surface.
Like setting up systems so bad news travels fast?
Essentially, yes. Contrast that with someone like Roy Ash at Addressograph, who apparently just wouldn't accept that his company's core technology was becoming obsolete. He didn't confront the brutal facts.
And the company suffered. Okay, so the takeaway is create a climate where the truth is heard, encourage debate, learn from mistakes without blame, and never lose faith in the end goal.
That's the essence of the Stockdale paradox in a business context. Face reality, but keep the faith.
Powerful stuff. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What about focus? Strategy.
This brings us to the hedgehog concept.
The hedgehog and the fox analogy. The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing.
Exactly. It's about simplicity. Finding that one core principle you stick to. It comes from understanding the intersection of 3 circles.
Okay, what are the 3 circles?
First, what can you be the best in the world at? And crucially, it's what you can be best at, not just what you want to be best at. Requires real self-assessment.
Okay, best in the world potential. What's the second?
Second, what drives your economic engine? What's the key metric, the denominator, that has the most impact on your success? Like profit per employee, or profit per customer, or profit per store visit. Something specific.
Understanding the core economics.
Got it.
And the third circle.
What are you deeply passionate about? What do you care about? What gets your team fired up?
Right. So best in the world, economic driver, and passion. The hedgehog concept is where those 3 overlap.
Precisely. It's finding that simple, clarifying concept at the intersection. It's not a goal or strategy in itself, but an understanding that guides all your strategies and decisions.
Can you give an example?
Wells Fargo, during banking deregulation, lots of banks were chasing complex global strategies. Wells Fargo's hedgehog concept was super simple. Run a bank focused on the Western U.S., stick to basic banking, and run it like a business, focusing on profit per employee. Simple, clear, powerful.
While others were maybe more scattered, like Security Pacific, the comparison company.
Exactly. They lacked that clarifying focus. Or look at Abbott Labs. They realized they couldn't necessarily be the absolute best pharmaceutical company, but they could be the best at creating products that contribute to cost-effective healthcare.
Ah, shifting the definition based on what they could be best at.
Yes, it leveraged their strengths in diagnostics, nutritionals, hospital supplies. That became their hedgehog.
And this helps avoid the curse of competence.
Big time. Just because you're good at something or even make money at it doesn't mean it fits your hedgehog concept. Doesn't mean you can be the best at it. The great companies had the discipline to say no to opportunities outside that core intersection.
So the action item is reflection. Really think. What can we realistically be the best at? What truly drives our economics? And what are we passionate about? Find that overlap.
And be brutally honest in the assessment. That's key.
Okay, so you have the right people. You're facing facts. You found your hedgehog concept. What keeps it all going?
That leads directly to a culture of discipline.
Discipline sounds strict, like bureaucracy.
No, actually, the book argues the opposite. Bureaucracy arises when you lack discipline, when you have the wrong people and need rules to manage them.
Ah, okay. So what kind of discipline are we talking about?
It's about having self-disciplined people who don't need to be managed constantly. People who take disciplined action, consistently adhering to the hedgehog concept. It's freedom and responsibility within a defined framework.
So disciplined thought first, then disciplined action.
Absolutely. The discipline starts with rigorously sticking to the hedgehog concept and refusing to stray. It requires the discipline to say no to things that don't fit.
They use this funny analogy, don't they, about rinsing cottage cheese?
Yeah. Dave Scott, the 6-time Ironman champion, he would meticulously rinse his cottage cheese to get rid of any extra fat grams, even though he was burning thousands of calories training.
That sounds obsessive.
It illustrates the intensity of the discipline. It wasn't just about big actions. It was about relentless consistency in everything, that deep commitment to doing things right, aligned with the overall goal. Carl Reichardt at Wells Fargo apparently embodied this to extreme diligence.
So it's not just the leader being disciplined like Galt at Rubbermaid.
Right. His personal discipline didn't translate into a lasting culture of discipline throughout the organization. The good to great companies built that culture.
So the takeaway, cultivate self-discipline personally and within the team. Build systems that reinforce consistency with the core concept. And be ruthless about saying no to distractions.
Fiercely protect that hedgehog concept. That's the discipline.
Okay, this is all making sense. What about technology? In today's world, isn't that the driver of everything?
Well, this was another surprising finding. Technology, according to the research, is an accelerator, not a creator, of momentum.
An accelerator, meaning it helps you go faster once you're already going in the right direction.
Exactly. The good to great companies didn't pioneer new technologies just for the sake of it. They first got clear on their hedgehog concept, built momentum, got their flywheel turning, which we'll get to. Then they adopted technology strategically to accelerate that momentum.
So they didn't jump on every tech bandwagon?
Nope. Look at Walgreens and the internet boom. They were pretty cautious initially.
Unlike, say, drugstore.com, which was built entirely online.
Right. Walgreens asked, how does this technology fit our hedgehog concept of convenience? How can it enhance our existing strengths, like our physical stores and inventory systems? They gradually integrated online refills and services that supported their core model.
They used it to make their existing strengths stronger.
Precisely. The key question they implicitly asked was, does this technology fit our hedgehog concept? If yes, then they became pioneers in applying it to that concept. If no,
Then maybe just aim for parity or even ignore it if it's irrelevant.
that was the pattern. And what's really telling is that most executives in the good to great companies didn't even list technology as one of the top 5 factors in their transformation.
Wow. That really flies in the face of conventional wisdom today.
It does. Technology is important, but it follows understanding and strategy. It doesn't create it.
So, practical advice. Don't chase shiny objects. Figure out your core direction first. Then ask how technology can help you get there faster or better.
Be a strategic user of technology, not just an adopter.
Okay, you mentioned the flywheel. Let's talk about that. What is the flywheel effect?
The flywheel is probably the best overall metaphor for the entire good to great process. Think of a huge, heavy flywheel. Getting it started takes massive effort, right? Push after push.
Yeah, barely moves at first.
But you keep pushing consistently in one direction. And slowly, it starts to turn. Then a little faster. And eventually it builds up so much momentum that it starts driving itself almost. One big final push doesn't make the difference. It's the cumulative effect of all the pushes.
So the transformation isn't one single event?
Yeah.
No aha moment or miracle program?
Almost never. The research showed it was this gradual, persistent process, pushing the flywheel with level 5 leadership, getting the right people, confronting facts, finding the hedgehog, building discipline. Each turn builds on the last.
Like Circuit City's transformation. You mentioned that took a long time.
Over a decade, under Alan Wurtzel, consistent effort, changing the model, getting the right team, focusing before they hit that breakthrough point where the momentum was undeniable.
Okay, so that's the flywheel. What's the alternative? What do the comparison companies do?
They get caught in the doom loop.
The doom loop. Sounds ominous.
It is. Instead of consistent pushing in one direction, they're constantly reacting, launching new programs, changing direction, restructuring, looking for that single magic bullet or savior leader.
Without understanding their core problems or having a clear direction.
Exactly. They might get a short-term bump from a new initiative, but then results disappoint, they change course again, morale drops, and they lurch onto the next fad. Think Warner Lambert, constantly reorganizing, or Burroughs, making acquisitions without a clear strategic fit.
Just reacting instead of building.
Yes. No accumulated momentum, just a lot of frantic activity that ultimately leads nowhere great.
And the flywheel has another effect, doesn't it, on the people?
Absolutely. When people see the flywheel starting to turn, when they see tangible results from consistent effort, it's energizing. They want to be part of it. It helps align everyone and attract more right people. Success breeds commitment.
So the takeaway, focus on consistent, disciplined action aligned with your hedgehog concept. Build momentum incrementally. Avoid the temptation to constantly change direction or look for quick fixes. Trust the process of turning the flywheel.
That's the path to breakthrough results. It takes patience, but it's sustainable.
Okay, we've covered the main framework. How does this connect to, say, Collins' other work, like Built to Last?
There's a strong connection. The research suggested that the companies featured in Built to Last, the ones that were enduringly great, had actually gone through their own good to great process earlier in their history. They applied these principles to become great in the first place.
So good to great is like the prequel. How you get great, and then Built to Last is about staying great.
Kind of, yeah. And the key to staying great, bridging the two, is the concept of preserve the core, stimulate progress.
Preserve the core values and purpose, but constantly change strategies and practices.
Exactly. Think Disney. Core values around imagination and wholesome entertainment remain, but the parks, movies, streaming services, they constantly evolve and adapt. Or Boeing taking a huge leap into commercial jets with the 707 that stimulated progress while leveraging their core aircraft manufacturing capabilities.
So it's not about being static, even once you're great. It's about holding on to your essential identity while pushing for change and improvement.
That's the dynamic for enduring greatness.
Okay, this has all been very practical, very framework-oriented. But the book ends on a more personal note, doesn't it? About why bother.
It does. It asks the question, why greatness? Why go through all this effort?
Because it's not easy. Clearly, it requires immense discipline and focus.
Right. And the book tells this wonderful story about a high school cross-country coach. She wasn't driven by winning championships necessarily.
What drove her then?
She was driven by the impact running had on the kids' lives. Seeing them develop discipline, resilience, self-worth, that's what fueled her passion to build a great program. It was deeply meaningful to her.
So the point isn't just about corporate profits or market share.
No. The book suggests the real question isn't why should I try to be great? It's what work, what endeavor makes you feel so passionate, so compelled that you want to try and make it great.
So if you have to ask, why bother?
Maybe you're not involved in something that truly resonates with your core values and passions. The implication is that greatness often comes when the work itself is meaningful, beyond just external rewards.
And that connects back to level 5 leadership, doesn't it? The ambition is for the cause, for the work itself.
Precisely. Find something you care about so deeply that the drive to make it the best it can possibly be becomes intrinsic. Not for ego, not just for money, but because you believe in its value.
So the final piece of actionable advice is almost existential. Connect your efforts to something you genuinely care about.
I think so. That deep sense of purpose provides the incredible fuel needed for the discipline and perseverance required to turn that flywheel, day after day, year after year.
Wow. Okay, let's try and pull this all together then. A quick recap of the core actionable ideas from good to great.
Okay, first, level 5 leadership. Cultivate that blend of personal humility and intense professional will. Focus on the cause, not yourself.
Second, first who, then what? Get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off before you figure out exactly where you're going. Character over specific skills initially.
Third, confront the brutal facts, but never lose faith. The Stockdale paradox. Face reality head-on, but maintain belief in ultimate success.
Fourth, the hedgehog concept. Find the simple, clarifying intersection of what you can be best at, what drives your economic engine, and what you're passionate about. Focus relentlessly on that.
Fifth, a culture of discipline. Self-disciplined people taking disciplined action, consistently aligned with the hedgehog. Freedom and responsibility within a framework. Say no to distractions.
Sixth, technology accelerators. Use technology strategically to enhance your hedgehog concept and accelerate momentum you've already built. Don't chase tech for its own sake.
And finally, the flywheel, not the doom loop. Build momentum through consistent incremental steps in a clear direction. Avoid reactive, inconsistent changes. Let cumulative effort work for you.
That's a powerful framework. And the key underlying message seems to be that it's a process. No magic wands.
Absolutely. It's about conscious choice and discipline, sustained over time. It's not easy, but the research suggests it is possible to go from good to great.
So a final thought for everyone listening. Maybe take a moment after this. Think about your own work, your team, maybe even a personal project. What might your hedgehog concept look like?
Yeah, what could you potentially be the best at? What drives its success? And what are you truly passionate about within it?
And maybe even more simply, what's one small, disciplined action you could take consistently, starting today, to start turning your own flywheel in that direction?
Great question to ponder. It all starts with those first pushes.
Indeed. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for walking us through it.
My pleasure. It's powerful stuff.